What's going on, guys? Hudi here with Level Up Gaming, and I've had some of you ask me directly how to figure out your playstyle or how to choose an agent based on your playstyle. And so I want to go into that a little bit and talk about playstyle, how you can figure yours out, and what agent I think you should be playing, and even if should be giving you that opinion myself anyways. So let's jump right into it and get right to the meat of this conversation. Make sure you hit that sub button for me. Make sure you hit the like button on your way down to the comments down below to let me know what kind of play style you think you have, and roll the intro. How to figure out your play style. And you know what? Everybody's a little bit different, and on some days you may be feeling slightly different than other days. There are days where I feel like playing extremely aggressive and my aim is able to support that, and I'm hitting my shots and it's really working out for me. And there are other days where I feel like no matter what I do when I play aggressive, when I try to entry frag, I lose those gunfights and I'm kind of just throwing my life away. And so that playstyle really isn't supporting, like my skills aren't supporting that playstyle on that day. And I think you need to recognize this as well. Understand where your strengths are at and understand where your weaknesses are at, and decide your playstyle based off of that. So I say that, so what should you be looking for in your strengths and weaknesses? Well, one thing that you need to be thinking about is when you're playing the game and you win a clutch situation, or you get a good 3K or 2K, whatever it may be, whatever you consider a good play for yourself, what happened in those situations? What did you do well? What worked for you? Did you have great aim? Did your raw aim really carry you to victory there? Or was it more of a mind game? Did you outthink your opponent? What was it? Was it a insane reaction in a short period of time? Did you just play the situation perfectly? These are the types of things you need to be thinking about when you're trying to decide what your main play style is going to be and what agent you should be playing because of that. And the reason I bring these points up is because if you're going to be an entry fragger and play super aggressive because that is your chosen play style, then obviously you need a little bit of brain, but you really need to be able to aim in those situations. You need to make sure that you have the strongest aim possible, and you need to feel confident walking out onto that bomb site after getting flashed in or smoked in or whatever it may be, knowing that you have 90 to 100% chance to win that gunfight that you're going to be taking against one or two enemies. That's very, very, very important when you're aggressive and an entry fragger. Now, on the other hand, if your main character is going to be something like Cypher or Killjoy or something that doesn't typically entry, and you're a slower player, and maybe you're going to be watching the flank or lurking or trying to outmaneuver your opponents or provide utility for your teammates, you're typically going to be the type of player that probably uses his brain more than his aim. And this isn't a bad thing. It's just a different style of play. You may still have really good aim, but maybe you prefer outthinking or outmaneuvering your opponent. Or maybe you don't have good aim, but you're still a pretty high rank because you're very good at outthinking and outbraining your opponents, like I was saying before. So in this type of situation, what you need to be working on primarily is still your aim, because you still want to be able to win the majority of those gunfights, right? Aim is incredibly important in this game. It's something you need to work on. But you also need to be working on your game sense and trying to understand the types of plays people make at your rank and at higher ranks, why they make them, and then when you're presented with those same situations, how you can play around the plays that you think your opponent are going to make and try to beat them in those situations. You're not going to be the type of player that entry frags and goes for 2 or 3 kills right off the bat. You're not going to be the type of player that tries to peek and take aim duels against a player that you think might have better aim than you. You're going to try and outsmart them. You're going to try and use your abilities to get an upper hand. You're going to try and do all of these things before taking that aim duel to try and give yourself the greatest advantage possible. But this is another point that I want to bring up here. And no matter what play style you have, whether you are aggressive, whether you are passive, whether you are a hybrid of the two, like I would consider myself, you still need to use your brain. You still need to use your aim, and the goal is still to win. So you need to be flexible. If your team needs you to entry, if your team needs you to play passive and watch the flank or call the shots for your team, whatever it may be. You need to feel comfortable doing that in that situation. And this is primarily talking about solo queue, right? Because if you're playing in a structured team, you're going to have a role. And you're going to want to figure out what that role is and work on those strengths and weaknesses to bring them up to par. But I'm here to tell you that if you're playing solo queue, you need to be as well-rounded as you possibly can. And now I know a lot of you are really stuck on trying to figure out my play style. What's best for me? What should I do? But you also need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You need to work on the parts of your abilities that are weaker than others. If you're better at aiming and you cannot outthink an opponent to save your life, and you always have the wrong positioning and you always make the wrong play in a clutch situation, you need to work on your game sense. You need to sit down, you need to watch your VODs, you need to watch pro VODs, you need to watch anybody's VODs, you need to get a VOD review from me, you need to get a VOD review from someone else, whoever's willing to do it for you, and you need to work on your game sense. But if it's the other way around, if you typically end up in a perfect situation, but you still lose those fights because you can't aim or whatever it may be, maybe you had crosshair placement off or something like that, but you're like perfectly positioned, you make the right choices, and then your aim fails you. That's fine. You may have really good game sense, but if you can't aim, you're still not gonna win. The amount of times I get caught out by an enemy shooting me from behind and I 180 and kill them with a gun that I shouldn't get the kill with because they missed the majority of their shots on me is still far too high. It shouldn't be happening as often as it does, and hell, it even happens to me sometimes, but my point still stands that you need to be working on all of these abilities, not just one. I like to focus on whatever I perceive as my weakest and then still train my strengths as well. You don't want to just train one and let the others kind of fall behind, because it will affect you long term depending on your goals. If your goal is to solo queue, duo, or trio queue up to a high rank and you're not in a structured 5-man team, you need to have well-rounded abilities and work on all of them so that you can have the largest potential impact possible in every single game that you play. Now let's get to the meat of choosing an agent based on your playstyle, right? So what I like to do is I'm gonna sway you away from trying to have a main agent. I think this is the wrong idea. I think this is a bad idea. You can have agents that you're best as, but I don't think you should ever view yourself as having a main agent. The problem with this is you are not putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations like I was talking about before. If you're playing all kinds of different agents all the time, learning their kits really well, understanding that agent to the highest potential possible as you can, then you're going to play better when you come up against that agent in later situations. The better you understand an agent, the more you played an agent, the better you're going to be when you come up against that agent. Now, this provides other benefits as well, because the more you put yourself in uncomfortable situations and scenarios, the more you work on the things that you're not good at, the more well-rounded of a player you will become, and the better overall player you will become. If you suck at aiming, but you decide that you're going to play an agent like Jet or like Raze or somebody that requires just an insane amount of aim because they don't have a lot of utility to get them in situations where they don't have to really worry about aiming, like an agent that doesn't have a flash or an agent that doesn't have smokes. If you're constantly putting yourself on agents that require you to aim duel and be really good at aim dueling, then you're probably going to improve that skill. And the same goes for the other way around. If you're the type of player that's playing Jet all the time because you have really good aim, but you fail when you play Cypher, you maybe want to play Cypher a little bit more, maybe Viper a little bit more. Try to play those mind gaming agents so that you can work on that ability of yours and get better over time. You can still prefer Jet or Raze or whoever you want to play. You can prefer those agents, but you need to be able to fill for your team and be as well-rounded of a player as possible. Pay attention to the pros, right? So the pros probably all have a favorite agent, and they typically will play that one presented the opportunity, but you'll also see them flex to other agents very, very often. They don't all just play one agent all the time. Their team comp would be exactly the same every game they went into, but that's not the case. You have people like Dapper who are gonna play Cypher a lot. He plays Cypher on almost every map, but that's because Cypher is extremely viable on every map. He can play other agents, he has played other agents, and he will in the future because he's a pro, because he's well-rounded, and because he doesn't just stick to one agent and really tunnel himself down that one skill set. So the point of all of this really is for me to say, don't get too caught up on choosing one agent that suits your playstyle. Obviously, if you're an aimer, if you're aggressive and entry fragger, agents like Jet, agents like Raze are going to be best for you. But if you're more of a passive, a thinker, a lurker, agents like Cypher, agents like Killjoy, Viper, those are going to be the types of agents that are good for you as well. And if you're kind of a hybrid like myself, you could probably flex one way or the other and be rather successful, but you also might find great success playing an agent like Omen, who can be really passive and smoke for his team, and can also play extremely aggressive and teleport all over the place and get into positions that the enemy won't expect and make crazy plays. So I hope you guys found this helpful and useful. Let me know in the comments down below, like I said, who your favorite agent is, what agent you prefer to main if you decide to have a main. I still don't think you should, but I'd like to hear from you guys. Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Nowhere to run.
Sit down. Where is everyone hiding?
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
3 out of 5.
That's his low.
Bug.